Before we start, just a quick reminder. The views and content shared on this podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only and are not a substitute for professional advice. Please check the full disclaimer in the show notes for more information.
Welcome to Self-Centered, the podcast that's all about you. We're your hosts.
I'm Allie, a therapist and life coach.
And I'm Katie, a fitness coach and personal trainer. We know what it's like to feel burnt out, taken for granted, and like your life revolves around everyone but yourself.
By learning to trust yourself, prioritize your needs, and set healthy boundaries, we help you break free from guilt, overfunctioning, and toxic patterns that keep you stuck in relationships and a life that doesn't truly serve you.
Join us each week as we dive into the tools, stories, and mindset shifts you need to create a life that centers you.
Because being self-centered isn't selfish, it's essential. So today we are talking all about boundaries. This is going to be your masterclass on boundaries. And what are they? How do we set them? Lots of little tips throughout, teaching you a lot about people's reactions and how to respond to that, how to cope with that, what gets in the way of setting boundaries, all the things.
It's going to be so good. I'm so glad we're doing this.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Yeah, it's going to be really good. Like I told you before, I'll work on boundaries with my clients one-on-one, but then I'm also going to tell them to go listen to this episode because I really think this is going to be comprehensive and it's so needed. Because I remember when I first was trying to set boundaries was a little less than 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was really when I realized I literally cannot keep living like this. I need to do it. And I was teaching boundary setting when I was doing group therapy as a therapist. And I remember being like, oh, all these things that I've learned. Yeah, that's great. But it's kind of like I think most of the boundary setting education out there is very idealistic. I don't think it's very realistic. And so we can get into boundaries and how to set them in real life with real people and especially with difficult people.
I love that because I feel like that's where it's most needed is the difficult people, because that's when you realize, oh shit, maybe I need a boundary here.
It is. I was thinking about it too, how people set boundaries with me all the time and I set boundaries all the time. And I was thinking about it because I wanted recent examples for this episode. And then I realized, oh, I don't think I have any. And then after that, I realized, yes, I do. It's just that I don't have many difficult people in my life anymore because I weeded them out. And so setting boundaries is something that's completely accepted and encouraged in my relationships now.
Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool to realize, oh yeah, I set boundaries. Other people set boundaries. And it's great. No one's offended because we want to know what each other's boundaries are because we care about each other.
Yeah, no, I love that because that is like one of the concerns that I especially had when I first started setting boundaries is that like it was going to ruin my relationships or like, and it changes the dynamic of your relationship. But if you're in relationships with people who are respectful and who care about you as a human, like they will be understanding of your boundaries and vice versa. But I remember it was such a fear point that like, oh, okay, well, this is going to like totally overhaul my life, having these boundaries in place. And it's good to know that there's positive when you do that.
Yeah, right. And you are overhauling your life and, change is hard. And especially when people don't like the boundaries you're setting, but it's always the hardest in the beginning and then it gets easier. You're creating a new normal. So, but we'll get into it. Getting ahead of ourselves.
I love it.
All right. So why don't you tell all of us about, because Katie came up with the idea for this episode. So, which obviously I'm 1,000,000,000% on board. And I love that you're like, let's do boundaries. And I'm like, yeah, how do we do a podcast about being self-centered without teaching boundaries explicitly?
Yeah.
So yeah, but what sparked that for you?
So I was actually going back through and listening to episode 2 and 3 shortly after we had recorded and before they're being uploaded. Obviously, we're ahead of y'all right now. But so I was listening back to them and I was like reflecting on, the moments in my life that were big turning points and that like really caused me to look inward and be more self-centered. And I was thinking about how that shift occurred. And I've mentioned it a few times, but like my divorce was a really big one for me. And the kind of arc that happened in that relationship getting to the point of divorce. And I was thinking about who was I in that moment and like what did I, Katie, of that time period know? And that Katie had no idea how to set a boundary or what that was. That Katie was very much like, oh, okay, well, you have to keep the peace. Everything has to be super positive. You can't like say what you want. And if you do say what you want and the other party is not in agreement with it, well, that sucks. Like you're just going to have to deal. And so that was kind of the dynamic of my relationship too, was, you know, if my husband didn't agree with me, it's like, well, okay, you have to make yourself small to keep the peace and make sure that he stays in charge and like in control of how everything works in the relationship. So those dynamics of having boundaries weren't there. I remember when I first started hearing the concept of boundaries, I was like, well, what does that even look like? Like, how do I set a boundary without it being like a threat or an ultimatum or something super negative? And how do I communicate that to my partner and my friendships and whatnot, while still maintaining my sense of self and supporting that they might not agree with what the things that I'm saying are?
So what did past Katie think it would mean about you if you set a boundary that other people didn't like and then you still followed through with it? So they're upset about it. What does that mean about you? Past Katie belief.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately it would mean that I'm a bad person. Like I hate that it's like, it's so black and white that way.
Yeah.
But for me, I never really saw boundaries modeled like that two people can have differing opinions and differing requirements in their life. And both of those things be true and honored. It was just, okay, well, someone's right and someone's wrong here. And the wrong person, well, you're either just going to have to adapt or you can't be in agreement and in a part of this community. I remember I just got so much anxiety and so much fear every time that I had, you know, one of those feelings of like, oh yeah, I need to set a boundary here, or I need to say what my request is. And then that was, gosh, it was usually just met in my head of like, oh, okay, well, this just isn't going to go well.
We could definitely hear Luna, by the way.
Yep, I'm moving her now.
I didn't want to cut you. We love you, Lulu.
I know. I might be putting her inside in just a second.
Yeah, so I've been hearing her for a while. Just
okay. Okay, good to know. Thanks for that. Give me two seconds. Okay, here we are.
I love it though. All the listeners will get to know our dogs. So
yep,
the official self-centered dog. Well, I would say if there was a self-centered dog out of our 3 dogs, it would be Luna. So
absolutely, yeah. She knows what she wants.
Yeah, and she has standards, and if you don't meet them, like it's a privilege to interact with Luna and to get her silly, goofy self. And if you do not meet her standards, then you're on the outside. You don't even get her silly, goofy self. You don't even see it. I didn't see it for, I think it was 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Moved in, and then I saw herself and I was like, oh my God, you're just a gooba. You didn't show me because I had to I had to earn your trust. Yeah.
Yeah. She's a little derp.
Oh my God, I love her. Okay. So yes, the reason you followed through with them anyway is because I think it's really important for us to all ask ourselves that. It tells us what gets in the way of setting the boundaries, right? Because go ahead.
I just thought of the other thing that past Katie would have thought of, that I don't love the people that I'm setting boundaries with.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you can probably imagine current Katie knows that that's very common. What past Katie was thinking. And past Allie, very similar. It was, honestly, intuitively, I knew there was nothing wrong with me setting boundaries. It was really, a lot of my really close friends, my really good friends who were and are healthy, so they're still in my life. At the time when I was trying to set boundaries with my family, they were like, you have every right to set this boundary. And I knew that. But I think because of the psychological abuse that confused and scrambled my brain so much that it was like, but they think that when I set a boundary that I'm selfish and I must not care about them, that I must not love my family. And I've heard from them multiple times, you don't have compassion. So I knew that's how it was coming off. And I guess that for me, I knew that boundaries were okay and I wasn't a bad person for setting them. So my focus was less on just accepting that I can't set a boundary and making myself small. My focus was more on like, I need to help them understand that my boundary doesn't mean that I don't love them. So there was a lot of explaining and over explaining that went on that actually in the long run confused me more because then they had specific points from me over explaining myself that then they could use to psychologically confuse me around. And then it also made it so much harder to set the boundaries because I kept taking their bait of saying, well, I don't understand. And that would hook me in more of a power struggle where I would stop setting the boundary and get into explaining mode. The belief for me in the moment before I overcame this was I can't set the boundary until they understand it. And that's not actually true. So, all of you listening, think about what gets in the way of me setting boundaries. What does it mean about me if I set boundaries and other people misunderstand me or misperceive me or don't like it? What's your biggest fear? And think about that as we're talking. We're going to cover all of the things, though, that will help with that. And by the end of the episode, you're going to be a self-centered boundary setter. You're going to be a boundary badass.
I love it.
All right. So, what are boundaries? Boundaries are personal limits we set that define how we want to be treated, how we interact with others, and what behaviors we find acceptable or unacceptable. So they're unique to each person, right? So everyone has different wants and needs, and those wants and needs can even vary with different people. So you'll have boundaries with different people in your life. You need different boundaries with different people and personalities in your life, depending on the relationship, the circumstance, and all of that can shift and change too, even in that relationship. So it's a very fluid thing, but we want to know what they are in the moment and communicate them. And then if and when they change, communicate that as well. Another way you can think about boundaries is they're like your personal rules of engagement. And then we communicate that in some way to others. So an analogy would be boundaries are like a fence. You're the house, right? The boundaries are the fence around you that protect you. And then you can have gates in the fence. And you're telling people, you can't come in over here where the fence is. That's not how you get access to me. But you can come through this gate. And if you don't choose the gate and you're trying to hop the fence, it's not going to work. And you might be mad about it, but it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So boundaries can be maintained whether or not other people respect them. And it's a misconception that other people have to do what we say and that boundaries are other people doing what we say. Because a lot of people will say, well, they didn't respect my boundary or they crossed my boundary. And so setting boundaries doesn't work. And what's really true is that boundaries are about our behavior and what we will do in response to the other person. So with the analogy of boundaries being a fence with gates, if people come up to the fence, that's their behavior. Then my behavior is I'm not going to engage. Whereas if people come up to the gate, that's their behavior. They walked up to the gate, then I will engage with them. Another way to think of this is if this, then that. So it's like Mad Libs where you fill in the blank. If blank, which is the other person's behavior, then blank, my behavior. And there's a positive version of that and there's a negative version of that. Oh, this recently, I was talking to a client about this last week. I'm going to keep it very general to protect confidentiality. So someone that they're in some type of relationship with continually brings up something that he's really upset about and has talked about it over and over and over and over again. And she's like, dude, I can't keep doing this with him. But I also feel bad because obviously he's upset about it. So she wanted to set a boundary. This is not how she would say it to him. This is just a way to understand the boundary. So if he keeps talking about this thing and keeps bringing it up, then she's going to say, let's change the subject, or I got to go, I'm getting off the phone. If he talks about something else, then we get to keep chatting. So she knows this. And what she would say to him would be different because it's just weird to be like, if this, then that. very robotic, but it's just good for all of you to know this is what I'm going to do if they follow through on what I want. And this is what I'm going to do if they don't do that. And then I have to stick to it. So boundaries can be maintained whether or not other people respect them. And we're going to get into details. This is just the initial overview. They help us protect our well-being from overcommitment, overextension, emotional harm, and burnout. You can plan them ahead of time. I'm always planning them ahead of time with my clients because obviously they're coming to therapy or to coaching with, I need to set a boundary. How am I going to do this? But you can also set them in the moment when you're experiencing communication from someone that you don't like or don't want to tolerate. It's totally okay to acknowledge in the moment, hey, the way that you're talking to me right now isn't okay. So I'm going to have to end this conversation, walk away, hang up the phone. Or we can change the subject, talk about something else, and we'll keep chatting. All right. That's our little overview. And then we're going to go into how do we set them and how do we maintain them?
Great.
So boundaries are all about assertiveness. Assertiveness is very much I matter and you matter. And so when we're thinking about passive communication, that's very much a belief of they matter, but I don't. In order to be assertive, we need to believe that we matter too. It's very important that ahead of time, you think that through and remind yourself that I matter too. This boundary makes sense. Talk with the people that you trust and whose judgment you trust so that you can feel prepared, feel confident, all of that. So reflect ahead of time on what your boundary is and what your behavior will be if they're respected and what your behavior will be if they aren't respected. And then here's a little, I guess, script, but I think it's technically like an acronym. DEAR, dear. This is going to organize what you say and the order in which you say it. It helps us keep things organized when we're talking, but then also we can reflect before we talk so that we have it all planned out. And that way in the moment, you're just like D. Oh yeah. Okay. So I say this. Okay. What's next? E, so it can really help you. So this comes from dialectical behavior therapy. It's an interpersonal effectiveness skill. So I want to plug that as well. Thank you, Marsha Linehan, who created DBT. You want to describe the situation that you're setting a boundary about. So you want to stick to the objective facts and communicate those facts without judgment. An example might be, hey, I've noticed that when we talk, you often share a lot about the challenges you're facing, like blank. Give specific examples. And E is express. Express your feelings and opinions about the situation. This is subjective, so it's about your experience from your perspective and the impact that the situation is having on you. So D, describe, is objective, and E, express, is subjective. So it's very much thoughts, opinions, perspective. Also, when you're expressing, you want to use I statements. So instead of you made me feel this way, it's and I feel this way, right? You can, when you're expressing, you can include emotional validation for the other person as well. So an example here of express would be, I care about you and I want to support you, but I've been feeling overwhelmed when our conversations stay focused on venting without moving towards solutions. Now you can add, like I said, emotional validation where you say, and it makes sense that this is something that you're venting a lot about because this is a big topic or big thing that you're going through or whatever. Like you could provide emotional validation, but you don't need to get into regulating them emotionally, meaning that you're taking responsibility for how they're feeling. It's more just acknowledging is what validation is. The next thing that we want to go to and share is assert. So A stands for assert. This is where we state what you want simply, clearly, and concretely, or you say no to a request. So this is the behavior that I want. This is what I don't want, or saying no to a request, which is also a boundary. When I say concretely, what I mean is you want to be really direct. And if you're asking for what you want, you want to tell them what you mean by that. So if you're assert, for example, not with this example, but in the past, I've told partners, I just really want to feel like you're caring for me and you're thinking about me. And I'll know that when you're telling me that you're thinking about me.
Yeah, I have a great example.
Okay, go ahead.
But it's actually your example.
Oh.
So it's going to be up to you if you want to share this one.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fine. We can share it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Allie has experience that we're just going to turn it over to you because it's your experience.
You want me to share the context of that and then you continue?
Well, I mean, there's not much for me to say on that one. That's just like a really.
Oh, you mean that, because I thought you were going to share the example, but you're just reminding me of something that you want me to share.
Yeah, I think valuable example that is very clear of, oh, okay, this is what I needed and this was what was missed.
Totally. Yes, I'll do that after I finish this one, actually, because I think it's going to get a little confusing.
That's very good.
So for cert, you want to state what you want simply, clearly, and concretely, or say no to a request. So for example, with this one, I'm happy to listen when you're looking for advice or trying to figure out a plan, but I can't continue having conversations that only focus on venting or complaining. So here how there are gates and there's the fence, right? So the gates are, I will listen when you're looking for advice or trying to figure out a plan. Those are gates. But having conversations that only focus on venting or complaining, that's you coming up to me at the fence, and I'm not accessible that way. I'm not available that way. And then reinforce is the last piece. You could think of it as reward. Like, what's the reward that they get? Or like, what's the intrinsic reward in doing what you want or accepting your no or not doing what you don't want? So like, what's in it for them, basically? So share the benefits of them granting your request or gracefully accepting your no. So the example here is, I think this could help both of us. You'll have a chance to process and take action, and I'll be able to stay present and supportive in a way that's sustainable for me. So you can hear how both of us matter. I matter and you matter. You can also do a reinforcement sandwich. So that's when you start with the benefits of the conversation you're about to have, and then you end with the benefits of them following through on your request or gracefully accepting your no. So if you're going to do the reinforcement sandwich and you're going to start with reinforcement, you would say something like, hey, I want to check in because something's been going on in our friendship and I want to make it better. I want it to work for both of us. And I think this is going to be a really good conversation. I think it really helps because if it's like, we need to talk.
So stressful when you hear that.
Exactly. So it's like, give them a little something like, hey, I wanted to check in because I think we could get on the same page about something and that's going to feel really good.
Yeah.
Or I want to check in. It feels so good to me that our relationship is one where we could just like be super open. Our relationship just gets stronger from us being open and communicating.
Yeah.
So that really sets the tone and makes it easier for people to listen to what you have to say because they're not like scared the whole time.
Definitely.
Let's see. Oh, and then the only last piece of that would be after you set the boundary, then when that behavior comes up, then you want to follow through on what you said you were going to do. So if they come up to the fence, you're not meeting them there, right? So if this person, this fictional person, starts venting to me, you can emotionally validate, right? But we're not going to emotionally regulate. So that means you can acknowledge that it's hard for them, like whatever they're venting about. So I could say something like, oh, hey, yeah, that situation is so hard. I totally get that that's coming up so much for you and you want to talk about it. And remember, that's not something that I can do anymore. I can think of
solutions.
Yeah, exactly. Solutions, we can collaborate, but I can't just keep doing the venting. And then if they go after you, and they get pissed, then bye. That's definitely a fence. Now we got a moat, motherfucker. Upgraded.
Oh my God. I love that.
You're going to be mad at me because I did what I said I was going to do because I'm protecting me. Yeah, we got a moat and we got a dragon. Okay, anyway. So you got to follow through. If you don't follow through, then they learn that they can walk all over you.
So by that measure, boundaries really require a lot of personal accountability too. To recognize that, oh yeah, I've set this boundary. I've said this thing is not going to be okay or not going to fly, or that this thing is going to fly, and to follow through on it. So like if you gave someone a gate, you also need to acknowledge that, yeah, I gave them a way to access me. And until that's no longer okay, and until we've discussed a different way, then that's the way that they access me. We can't just hold bitterness that, oh, okay, well, I had to have this boundary talk in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to state that boundaries can also be just defense.
Yeah.
or
That's so true.
there are certain people that the boundary is, I have nothing to do with you. I don't interact with you. I don't talk to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have people blocked. That's a boundary. There's
Yeah.
no gate. But those people who are blocked for me personally did start with gates as an option, but they just kept coming to the fence. And I got tired of that. So yeah, your gate privileges have been revoked. And now you got a steel wall. So that is completely fine as well. But when it comes to boundaries with people you want to stay in relationship with, you're probably going to have gates. It's good to have gates. And if they're respected, great. And if they're not, then you probably need more gates. And then it kind of gets to a place where it's like, yeah, unfortunately, this whole thing is padlocked. People lose their privilege. Okay, so Katie had an idea for another example that we could do that I've experienced, and it's a little bit different. So this boundary was about what we're not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to keep having conversations that only focus on venting or complaining, but we can problem solve. Blah, blah, blah. But Katie had the idea of me talking about a past experience that I had. I had set a boundary, actually more of a request of like, this is what I'm looking for in these situations. This is what I want from you. But it would still be a boundary too, because the if this, then that would be, and if you don't do that, peace.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it really, without the boundary being honored, the person failed to see you when they didn't acknowledge the boundary.
Yeah.
And that was a really core part for you.
So I'll give some context and then you can give me your thoughts on how you're thinking about this in terms of the boundary. And then I can clarify, because I guess probably because I still haven't fully processed that experience, I'm not making all the connections that you're making since it's me and it's personal to me. I don't have as much perspective as you do. So the situation that Katie's talking about, there is a day that is just the hardest day of the year for me every single year. And people say with trauma, professionals say, research supports it, that the body keeps the score. So there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, who's a trauma therapist. And it's all about how trauma is in our body. And any of you who experience an anniversary of a trauma or an anniversary of a death, you know that when that day rolls around, something's just off. And I'll even forget that that day is coming up or it is that day. And I'll be like, why am I so off? Like, why can I not think straight? Why do I have brain fog? Feels like there's lead in my chest. Why is it hard to breathe? Why am I so sad? Why am I so upset? And that's your body's response to trauma. And just knowing that it's an anniversary of that. And it's really a flashback is what that is. It's an emotional flashback to how you felt at that time when the trauma was going on. Or it's sadness and grief that things are the way they are. You can't have a healthy relationship even if you wanted it because it's just not possible. Grief of someone not being here anymore or passing, the loss, whether they're here or not, right? But just not being able to have that connection. So that's what happens for me on this specific day every year. And it's just a really hard day for me. So with someone that I was dating, I think I told them,
you made it very clear.
Yeah, I communicated
multiple times.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's great that I have Katie's memory because I was living with her. And so, okay, so I did communicate it, but I honestly don't remember communicating it multiple times. But I believe it. As I'm talking about it, I'm actually remembering more that, yeah, I did. I said, this day is really hard for me. So I'm just going to want to talk to you. I'm going to want to interact with you, communicate with you. I don't even need a ton of emotional support. It would have been fine if I did, but I didn't. I just want you to, be there. And we were long distance. So like, let's FaceTime, that kind of thing. And then my friend, Krista, she scheduled a whale watch for us to go on, which was great. But then it got canceled. So that was kind of a bummer. And it was like this gray, rainy day, which is really unusual in San Diego. So this whale watch got canceled. And the person that I was dating, I forget exactly what it was, but I think that they, at one point, I think it was just like, oh, hey, I have plans. This is them texting me like, hey, I have plans plans today. I'm going to hang out with my friend, but I'm free right now if you want to talk. And I wasn't free because I was getting ready to go to this whale watch before it was canceled.
It was pretty early.
Yeah, it was pretty early. Yeah, and I had also communicated like my schedule for that day as well. And it was also not a work day. So, and this person is usually free. But anyway, the whale watch gets canceled, but my friend and I think, ended up going to lunch or something because we're like, well, let's just do something. And so then I texted him and was like, oh, hey, this is what happened. And like, this is when I'll be free. And he was like, oh, well, I have bad service and I'm going to be at my friend's. And then later, another friend is coming over. And I was like, okay. And then I think later in the day, like I think I texted him and was like, oh, I'll be like free at this. I forget exactly what it was, but it was something where literally didn't say anything. He was hanging out with one girl and then another girl who were friends. And truly, he has a lot of girls who are friends. So, and one of them doesn't have a good relationship with her mom, and the other one's mom recently died or something. So he's like, I'm being there for my friend. So I'm kind of getting upset, honestly, because I am upset already today, but I wanted someone who was going to be really considerate and, oh, like, how are you doing? What's going on? I'm being really thoughtful and aware of what's going on for you. And then they're not doing that. So now I'm doubly upset and it just feels weird and I'm trying to be okay. But on this day, my brain, all of the self-control that I have is gone. I'm just a blubbering mess and I'm just regressed and I'm a little kid and I just want you to hug me and hold me and just be nice to me and take care of me. Like, that's what I want. And I truly am not like that any day except for like yeah. So anyway, so I think I was just like, all right, well, I'm going to try to just do my own thing. And so I went grocery shopping and I'm looking at the time and I'm on the West Coast and he's on the East Coast. So he's like 3 hours later. And I'm looking at the time and I'm like, he goes to bed at 10 p.m. and it's like 6:45 p.m. right now. And I still haven't heard back from him. Me being like, oh yeah, I'm back. I'm free when you are. So it's 9:45 p.m. where he is. And I'm like, this is weird, but maybe he's like being there for this girl whose mom died, kind of trying to calm myself down that, oh, it's probably he's just being a good friend and whatever. And then you're going to talk and he's going to stay up later, of course, because he knows he hasn't been able to talk to you all day and whatever. So 6:45, I'm leaving to go to Trader Joe's to go grocery shopping. And he texts me, hey, they just left and I'm heading to bed if you want to talk now. And I'm like, what the fuck did you just say? What? Like, what? And so I am so fucking pissed and I'm like, no, I'm not going to not go grocery. This guy needs to fucking wait while I go grocery shopping. He has not communicated with me all day. So I was like, well, I'm going to Trader Joe's, but it would be really good to talk to you. I haven't been able to talk to you all day. So it's going to be like 15 minutes. And he's like, okay, well, I'm really tired. So, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding? And this is really bringing me back. So I get in the car after coming out of Trader Joe's and call him, and he's fucking drunk. And I'm like, and he's not like, oh my gosh, how are you? How's everything going? This is an important day. No, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, my friends, yeah, they're having a tough time because of their moms. And this girl whose mom died, she was crying on my shoulder and I was wiping her tears, which, I mean, I have nothing against this girl, this is not about her. But are you fucking kidding me? I will kill you. But the thing is, too, like I said, on this day, it's like I am not my usual self. So I almost felt like I couldn't trust myself and my perceptions and my reactions. So I was trying to be okay. Yep. And honestly, it's funny you bring that up, Katie, because I was thinking about this recently as I keep processing this breakup. And there were so many circumstances that were reasons why I continued in that relationship. That was definitely one. That was a huge red flag. And I actually remember in the moment being like, whoa, this is not okay. And I told him that. I was very clear about that. I was like, this is not okay. This is not okay. And I remember being like, I did not expect this from him. So it was kind of this like jolting me awake kind of moment. But literally, I was moving a week or two later and I was going to be living with him. So, oh my God. And so it was kind of like, well, I'm not going to fucking like blow up my life. I'll live there. I'm just going to finish working for this nonprofit. If it doesn't work out, I'll leave, which I did, obviously. So anyway, yeah, I did actually clearly state my expectation. And so I didn't say like, if this then that though. Like I didn't say, and if you don't do that, blah, 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 blah. But and you don't always have to do that. But it's important for you to know for yourself when you're setting with a boundary. Like, if they don't do what you want or they do things that you don't want, then what is your response going to be? And again, that the self accountability, that's kind of like a boundary with yourself and your own personal standards. If that happened again today, I mean, I've learned so many lessons, I would totally have walked away.
Yeah. Yeah. I just remember when, and to clarify for the audience, Allie is so clear. when you express a need and when you express like even just heads up about experiences, you are so clear. And this person also seemed to be very clear in understanding and communicating as well, which is why initially you guys were really compatible because you could communicate
There were
really.
so many green flags.
There were, yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah. And I remember that early when you guys had started dating and talking, this had come up that you had mentioned that like Mother's Day is a hard day for you. Yeah. I remember 2 weeks out from Mother's Day that you had said, yeah, Mother's Day is coming up and it's a really hard day for me. And I'm really going to need some support. And support can be like, hey, I just need to know that you're here for me and you care about me and you're in my life. And just make an acknowledgement of that. And if you can make an intentful point to communicate with me and be a light in my day, that'd be awesome.
Exactly.
And I remember on the day you had said, have this day plan, but it's going to be really valuable and important to me to be able to talk to you later. And like, is that still a thing? And like, yeah, it seemed from all that communication that he was totally on board and understood that. And then when the moment came, it was like, okay, we vanished. We, stopped listening and hearing the boundary. And we said, oh, no, I'm not even going to acknowledge it and I'm not going to support it. And then I'm actually going to do exactly what you asked for someone else.
Got it. Yeah. Sorry.
That was a gasp.
It was a gasp because I guess obviously I had just thought of it as like, oh, wow, he's being such a good friend to these people. But I hadn't thought of that in that context of like, oh, well, he was doing exactly what you asked for other people.
Yeah. And then when the moment came where he had the opportunity to give you that same support that you explicitly asked for, he turned it away and said, sorry, I'm tired. I already gave it all.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. And I was crying. It was bad. I mean, that's a core memory for me. I mean, oh my God, it was so bad because I was also, it just felt like such a disappointment is too small of a word, but it just felt, oh God, it just felt awful. And so I was crying. I was very upset and way more upset than I would usually be too. It was just like, that's literally the worst. Like my dad died on New Year's Eve and that day is always fine for me. Because there was no complication or anything. That was just a great relationship and I love him and I'm glad he was my dad. And of course, like I miss him, but yeah, it's just so different than this. I can't even describe psychologically where this day puts me. So I was crying on the phone and upset. And he was like, I have to go. I can't handle this emotion. And then we talked about it the next day. And he was like, because of my trauma, because of my trauma in this relationship, this other relationship that I've had, you reminded me of that. And like, it's why I shut down.
And the tough part is if you're just looking at this from just the explicit facts that are being stated right now, you might say, oh, okay, well, it sounds like he expressed a boundary that he didn't have capacity to support. But the problem is that he stated beforehand that he could and acknowledged and said,
in a way that would reduce his capacity.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. It's interesting because that person did say, yes, I can be there to support you. And I want to be there to support you. And I want to help you through these difficult times in life. That's why I want to enter into a partnership with you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big ask.
Not at all. And honestly, if he was like, well, I can't do that. I mean, well, I was just about to say, if he was like, I can't do that, that I would be fine with that. But the truth is that he would be allowed to say, I can't do that. And that wouldn't make him a bad person, but it would make him not compatible with me because I want to be someone who at least once a year is going to like be there for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. That was like a little bit of therapy for me. Hopefully, all of you got something out of that because I definitely did. Thanks for bringing that up, Katie. It's helpful to reprocess this stuff. All right. So now I want to talk about how do you set the boundaries? So, what we just talked about is what you say. How do I organize my thoughts? How do I reflect on it beforehand? What do I say? That's what you're doing. But how are you being when you're setting these boundaries? And how are you standing in your power? And how do you do it effectively and confidently? Just to continue, DBT skills, more acronyms, man, give, fast.
Are
also,
these 3 separate acronyms? Man, give, and fast?
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, I've added my own little tweaks. So this is DBT inspired, just to be clear. It's been DBT inspired the whole time. Just okay. So the M in man. So man skills. We could call them woman skills, but I don't know what the wo would stand for. The wo is woo. Okay. Now man. The M is you want to be mindful. So you want to be mindful of 3 things. One, of your nonverbal body language. So you want to stay calm and respectful, right? You want to be aware of like, what is my face doing? Like, what is my body doing? And then you want to be mindful in the sense that you're staying focused on the purpose of the conversation, which is communicating your boundary. And similarly, you redirect yourself from distractions back to the focus of communicating the boundaries. What can happen is when we set our boundaries, people can respond with, well, I don't really understand, or, but why do you feel that way? Or just thinking about the people that have been tough for me, but you shouldn't need that, like just disagreeing. That can derail you. And it can also get you to stop being focused on communicating the boundary and go into explaining yourself, over explaining yourself, which isn't a good idea. So you want to be a broken record. You just want to say the same thing over and over again. A lot of the times people think that if they say, I don't understand, I don't understand, I don't understand, or they keep pushing you and pushing back on your boundary over and over again, that you'll give up and you won't keep the boundary, which is true. So to be effective, you don't want to do that. You want to be a broken record and say the same thing over and over again in different ways. Katie is like,
my mind is like, oh shit. Like that never dawned on me. And now that you say that, I'm like rethinking experiences where I have set boundaries. And yeah, they just like go on and on and on and then cause me to doubt myself. I'm like, well, why would you need this boundary? Why would you need to say this? Why would you need me to do that? Why would you need, this? Yeah. And now I'm like, oh, fuck. Like,
that's the thing is like before learning these things, we don't see it, but then you learn, oh, wait, when they push back over and over again, they're trying to derail me from me holding the boundary. And you're like, oh, okay, I see it. Now it's clear as day. And that helps be effective. Yeah.
So that's staying in your seat in terms of boundary setting. It's like, okay, well, I know what I'm here to say. I know what the boundary is that I'm about to set and why it's important to me. And I stay in that realm of like, these are the things, this is the topic. We don't need to get into like my why or may or may not be understood by you. It's about right now what I'm putting forth.
Right. Yeah. Cause if you're saying no, so if your boundary is saying no to a request and you're like, oh, I can't, I'm actually busy that day. It's better to keep it general. When you give a reason, which I think it's okay to give a reason. A lot of people say no is a complete sentence, which it is, but it's also kind of shitty.
Yeah.
No, Okay, well, I'll go fuck myself then. You know? So I think it's good to give reasons because I think that's respectful, but be general about it. Don't be specific, especially with difficult people or manipulative people, because they'll take your specific reason for why you can't walk their dog and they'll provide a solution for that reason and then tell you, actually, you don't need that boundary.
Yeah.
So you want to be a broken record. You just keep saying the same thing over and over again. And then you redirect away from the distractions and don't take the bait every time they say, I don't understand, or they're getting reactive, they're mad, they're arguing. You don't want to take that bait and you just want to keep repeating basically the same thing over and over again. And I think it's really helpful to accept that they don't need to understand. They don't need to agree. They don't need to be happy with me. And those just serve as bait that can hook me if I try to get into explaining myself, getting them to agree with me, getting them to be happy with me. So it's really like, nope, the goal is not understanding or agreeing. The goal is to communicate my boundary. And they might not understand that. And I like to explicitly state that if it's clear that people are trying to derail me. If they say, I don't understand, I will literally acknowledge, yeah, it seems like we're not going to be on the same page about this. And the word and. So you're acknowledging we're not going to be on the same page about this. And this is what I need to do. Or,
Yeah.
well, that seems really selfish for me. Oh, okay. For you, it seems like I'm being really selfish. And for me, this is something I really need to do to take care of myself. So it's like you acknowledge what they say and come back to being the broken record. Don't go into over explaining. And this is where it's really important to validate yourself, right? Because if they're not going to be happy with you, if they're not going to understand, if they're not going to agree with you, you need to agree with you. You need to understand you and you need to be happy with you. So that's the internal work that you do before and after. And talk to the people in your life whose judgment that you trust and who love you so that they can bring you back to validating yourself. It's also good to have a coping plan. So, knowing myself, so all of you knowing yourselves, how might I take this? What am I most nervous about? What are my personal insecurities or the ways that I feel like I'm selfish or whatever it is? What's going to be triggered for me? And literally, you can write down. And I think it's good to write down because when you're in a more regulated place, your brain is in the frontal lobe, which is where you have reason and you can think clearly. When you're stressed out during and after a boundary setting interaction, especially one that doesn't go well, you're more in your amygdala, which is fight, flight, freeze, survival brain, and your frontal lobe actually is not working as well. So it's going to be harder for you to self-validate. So I would write down ahead of time, here's what I need to remind myself of, here's what's really true, and it can be really helpful. For me, I like this personal reminder script of it makes sense I feel blank because blank, but what's really true is blank. So it makes sense I feel selfish for saying no because of past experiences in my family where I was taught that if I don't sacrifice myself, I'm a bad person. But what's really true is I'm a good person and I have to take care of myself because I only have me.
That's so good. That's so good.
I'm glad.
So can you say that script again one more time? It makes sense. I feel.
Yep. It makes sense I feel blank because blank, but what's really true is blank.
I love that. I hope I hope you write that down.
We're gonna have to make a self-centered workbook, dude. Like,
we really are.
yeah. And actually, that'll be really fun. And also, when we do our retreat, we can have little workshops where, yeah, we're doing this. We're gonna have a retreat, y'all.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
Episode 6.
Okay. Another thing. Be aware of what's called the extinction burst. That's a term from behavioral psychology. It goes back to operant conditioning, which is behavioral conditioning, where a behavior that was previously reinforced will actually increase before it decreases when it's no longer reinforced. So let me give you the specific example so that that makes sense. So if the person that you're setting a boundary with, if they are used to getting their way because they derail these boundaries, setting conversations and, get you into explaining yourself and then pick that apart and then gaslight you, whatever. If they're used to getting their way, or you've never set a boundary with them, so they're used to you literally not having any limits or boundaries, that's them being reinforced for the behavior of being a difficult person or a disrespectful person or a not empathetic person, a selfish person. And so when you do finally set a boundary with them, they're going to be pissed, and that behavior of disrespect is going to increase before it decreases because they're trying to get you basically to get what they want, and it's worked before. So if you think about like a little kid, if you say no, 2-year-old, you can't have that candy from the grocery store, and then they start crying and you're like, oh, okay, I'll give it to you. And you do that every time, what do they learn? They learn, well, if I make their life harder, then I get what I want. So with that 2-year-old, after you do that for 2 years, you say, no, you can't have it. Well, they're going to throw the biggest tantrum. They're not going to be like, oh, okay. You see, you're setting limits now. You're self-centered. Okay. Got it. No, they're going to be like, what? Okay, well, I just need to up the ante. So there will be a burst in the behavior, meaning an increase in the behavior you don't want before it's extinguished, before it goes away. So when people are extra shitty, that means you're doing the right thing. It doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing. And that's really important for you to know, because a lot of people say, oh my gosh, well, I set this boundary and it really didn't go well because they were so mad and I've never seen them that mad before. So I must have done something wrong. It's like, no, bitch, you did something right.
Yeah. And so that's really basically when you set a boundary, expect it to be tested.
Yeah. When it's with a difficult person.
Yeah. With a difficult person, for sure. For sure. That reminds me of dog training too. You see it with dogs all the time too.
That's operant conditioning. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Training is conditioning.
Yeah.
Because it's associating a behavior with a reward or a punishment.
Yeah.
And then when you change that, the behavior changes. So we're still, that was the M of man. And we still got give fast. Let me go through my notes. Oh, but then when we're done with that, we're done.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I promise there's something after that.
We're doing good.
Okay. I told you it's going to be comprehensive, y'all.
Okay, wait. Can we say what the word was for M again?
Mindful.
Mindful. Got it.
The
Okay.
reason it's mindful is because mindfulness is when you choose a focus, and then when you get distracted from it, you notice that you're distracted, and then you come back to the focus. So you want to stay focused on the purpose of the conversation, which is setting your boundary. And when you get distracted or derailed, you notice, you don't take the bait, and you come back to the focus.
Okay.
A.
Give me an A.
Give me an A. A is for appear confident. Notice that I didn't say be confident. It just appear. Fake it till you make it.
I love that.
Okay, so yeah, fake it till you make it. So how do you appear confident? Your posture is more open. So shoulders up, back, and down instead of like hunched over. Eye contact. If eye contact is hard for you, look between their eyebrows. And it looks like you're looking them in the eye. Speak calmly, speak clearly, and do not over-explain. When you over-explain, you don't look as confident.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. All right. N is for negotiate only if necessary. So ahead of time, before you set a boundary, think about whether or not you're flexible. And if so, what are you willing to flex on? For the example that I gave before of this person who keeps venting without finding solutions or working on solutions, negotiating could look like, if you really need to complain, I'll do it only when I have the bandwidth and only for a few minutes before moving on. So there could be exceptions to the rule if you're okay with exceptions to the rule, but you want to think about that ahead of time because, again, coming back to training, you don't want to tell them you're not flexible and then you are flexible because they're like, oh, they were flexible because I pushed them. And you don't want to reinforce that behavior. So think if you're flexible. Also, for negotiate, Sometimes people they put all of the responsibility on you to solve their problems. So when you say no to a request that they made, they might be like, how am I supposed to go on this vacation if I don't have someone to walk my dog or watch my dog, whatever it is? If you do accidentally find yourself, instead of emotionally validating, you're emotionally regulating and problem solving for them, right? You're taking responsibility for it. You want to catch that and then turn the tables. So that's one way to negotiate. Turning the tables means they keep putting their responsibilities on your side of the table. You're going to turn it so that their responsibilities are back on their side. So that looks like, well, what do you think you should do? Or for the example that I gave of the person venting, I'm not able to keep doing this, and it seems hard for you to accept that. How do you think we should move forward? You just keep acknowledging the situation and then putting it back to them. And then at the end of the day, you can always be like, for any conversation, no matter what the topic is, if you need to end it and get out, it's just, this doesn't seem like it's productive anymore. And it doesn't seem like there's anything we can do to make it productive. So I'm going to have to go and I'll talk to you later. Click. All right, great. We're done with man.
So man, mindfulness,
Appear confident.
appear confident, and negotiate.
Negotiate.
Got it.
Yep. And negotiation is about where are you flexible if you are flexible, so you know ahead of time, and then, using that to quote unquote negotiate, and then turning the tables if they keep putting responsibility on you.
Got it.
Yep. Okay, give. So the give skills are all about communicating respect for their feelings. So these are skills that you want to use them with people who aren't manipulative.
Who are not.
You want to use these skills with people who are not manipulative. And also, you only want to use these skills if you haven't effectively communicated respect for other people's feelings. The reason I say that is because I think most of the people listening are probably going to be on the more empathetic side of the spectrum and probably communicate a lot of respect for other people's feelings and maybe focus too much on respect for other people's feelings and not enough respect for their own feelings. And so it's more of a passive communication style of you matter, but I don't matter. I respect your feelings, but I don't respect mine. So if that's you, don't use these skills. And or only use these skills with people who are not manipulative and you just love so much. And when you're setting boundaries with them, it's super easy and they're respected and you just love them. So you're like, let me throw a ton of communicating my respect for you on top of this. So I wanted to include them just because, that's nice. So there's already a precedent in the relationship of you being overly respectful of them and sacrificing yourself. Yeah, don't use too many of these, if at all, because you don't want to just do more emotional labor. You want to stop engaging in that dynamic. Okay, so give. The first letter's G for gentle. So be respectful, avoid making judgmental statements, use and instead of but so that you don't negate their point of view. So it sounds like it will be difficult not to vent to me, and I'm not able to keep doing that. That's more gentle than I get that it's hard for you to stop venting, but I can't keep listening to that. I stands for interested. Act interested, affirmative nodding, that's nonverbal communication, don't interrupt, reflect back their main points to them. V stands for validate. So you want to acknowledge their feelings, but you don't necessarily need to agree with them. So validating is more about acknowledging feelings than agreeing with feelings. So for my example, it would be, it's completely understandable to feel the need to vent when things feel overwhelming for you. Of course, we would add to that. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. So there's different ways to validate. So you can reflect what they're saying by paraphrasing to show you understand what they're saying. You could share how their feelings or perspective makes sense based on what they've experienced or learned, even if you don't think what they experienced or learned was an accurate belief. And also normalizing any grain of truth in what they're saying can be helpful, because I think it's just money in the bank to be like, all right, well, I'm going to validate the valid, so I'm trustworthy. I'm not against you. And then E is for easy manner. Have a flexible and calm demeanor. Look relaxed. That one was easy. Yeah. Being respectful is so easy, dude.
It really is.
Right? Okay. And then the last skills are fast skills And that's about communicating your respect for yourself. So those of you listening, you probably want to use a lot of these. So F stands for fair. You want to be fair to yourself and to them. Make sure you're staying factual and not judgmental or accusatory. So this goes back to you matter and I matter too. We both matter. And the reason that this communicates self-respect is because if you tend to only be fair to them, you need to be fair to yourself as well. And this is part of self-validation. So if it's helpful before you get into a boundary setting conversation to even write out, dear man, give fast, and write out, here's how it's fair to me to set this boundary. Here's why it's important. Do that. The A is for no apologies. So DBT is really funny because it's not really an acronym. And that happens a lot with DBT. They'll be like lowercase no and then apologies with a capital A. And it's like,
maybe we make it
anti-apologies. Perfect. A is for anti-apologies. Don't apologize for setting a boundary. Don't apologize for the way you feel. Don't apologize for having a different perspective or wants or needs. You can acknowledge and validate their emotions, but do not apologize. So you could be like, oh, yeah, that is a bummer that you don't have anyone to watch your dog. Oh, I'm so sorry you're in that situation. So that's validating. Oh, the example I gave, I said sorry.
You did. Yeah. But there's a difference. It's not, I'm sorry that I'm not helping you. It's, I'm sorry you had a shitty situation to deal with.
Exactly. It's kind of like we're anti-apologies in terms of taking responsibility for something.
Yeah.
So I guess you can say, oh, I'm sorry, but it's a different kind of sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And then S is stick to your values. So know your personal values, your ethics, your standards, and limits related to the topic at hand, and don't compromise them to avoid conflict or to appease them. Then T is truthful. Stick to the facts. Don't exaggerate. Don't embellish. Don't make judgmental statements. And that's it.
That's it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how do you distinguish between a boundary being a boundary or a boundary being an ultimatum?
So I think that boundaries could be ultimatums.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if this, then that, if they engage in this behavior, then your behavior might be that you don't engage with them ever again, which is what ultimatum is. So boundaries can be an ultimatum. However, I wouldn't start there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think never setting a boundary or communicating your wants or your needs to someone or your limits or how things are impacting you, and then all of a sudden being like, well, if you do this or don't do this, then I'm leaving you and never talking to you again. It's probably not fair.
Yeah.
However, I will say in extreme situations, there are situations with people who are dangerous and reactive. And if you set one boundary, right? Like if you're keeping yourself small and the reason you're not communicating your wants and needs and feelings is for your safety, then you need to get out. Like you need a safety plan. You need support. So I just want to be really clear about that's the one exception to what I'm saying, because if you're in an abusive or unsafe situation, you do not need to, you need to be safe. Like yeah. However, in most situations, I think we want you to be communicating what's going on for you and what your needs are, and giving people an opportunity respect your boundaries.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Because it's interesting when I reflect back on old Katie who was trying to navigate and figure out boundaries very much felt like ultimatums. And I was essentially always told that you should never give someone an ultimatum because that was forcing their hand and that was manipulative and whatnot. Yeah. So for me, like when there were things in my relationship that I was not comfortable with and I didn't want to tolerate, even if I had stated, early on, like, hey, these are things that are no flies for me and this doesn't support me and I don't want to be in a relationship like that. Because there was already an established relationship, me saying, well, I actually told you this pretty early on. And it was like, what? So you're going to leave me now? Like, so like, what are you using that as like a thing for, breaking up or divorce or like, that sort of thing? And I'm like, well, that's not what I'm asking.
Ironically, that's such a manipulative response.
It is, yeah. Yeah. And so that's so interesting to me because when I think about, oh, okay, my fear with boundaries is them being an ultimatum, that's actually a me thing that I would need to work through in terms of, okay, well, boundaries are not bad. And ultimatums are not bad so long as there's clear communication of the ultimatum is about me and what I'm choosing to do, not about what I'm forcing someone else to do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think that that's really messed up. But I remember that as well.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, like when I was a teenager, when I was in college, when I was in my teens and 20s, I remember hearing that an ultimatum is manipulative. I think people can use ultimatums manipulatively for sure. But do I
Yeah.
think an ultimatum in and of itself is manipulative? No, it's just a line in the sand that this is what I will and won't tolerate.
Yeah.
And so if you cross this line, I won't tolerate it and you're cut off. Bye.
Yeah. I remember early in my relationship with my ex-husband when we were dating, and I understand the perspective for why he said what he said, but it was, well, if you ever threaten breakup, I'm done with you there. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Which then translated when we got married, if you ever said the word divorce, we're done there. Which then makes it really difficult to say, well, hey, these are really challenging things that for me, if they continue on, I can't continue to be in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes it murky to identify the if then
Right.
of if this happens, then I have to choose this next action. Because for me, I had a fear of like, well, I want us to work through this thing, right? I want us to be able to have growth in this and to get to a side that we can both be in agreement on.
Right.
But unfortunately, if we can't, yes, the next step for me is that this is not a compatible relationship anymore.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
it sucks not being able to say, well,
Yeah, because in the context that you're talking about it, it wouldn't be you just randomly and manipulatively saying, well, then we need to get a divorce. It sounds like it was you saying, I'm concerned that if we don't work on this and this does not improve, then I will not be able to stay in this marriage. And this marriage matters to me and I don't want it to end. So that's why I'm bringing it up. But you
yeah.
couldn't even say that because anything in the context of your marriage ending was, I don't even want to say perceived, because I don't know if it was perceived as manipulative as much as it sounds like that was manipulative on his end. Because you wouldn't be talking about ending the marriage, you would be talking about protecting the marriage from ending.
Right.
But talking about protecting the marriage from ending involves the words marriage ending.
Yes.
So you can't even bring up the context that you're trying to avoid by working on things,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
makes him, which allows him to avoid responsibility and accountability and even hearing feedback from you.
Yeah. Yeah. That all tracks.
Gosh, psychological abuse is so sneaky, so sneaky. That's why we all need people to bounce things off of.
Definitely.
When you were talking, it also made me remember that some boundaries don't need to be communicated because they're obvious. Just thinking about some relationships I've heard my clients talk from in the context of these relationships with people who sounded pretty manipulative, where it would be like, just something ridiculous that they did. I don't know. I'm going to give a ridiculous example because I can't think of anything else. But let's say one of my clients, their husband like squeezed their friend's butt when they were over or something. And my client said to their husband, I'm not okay with that. That's not okay. And the husband said, well, you should have told me that. I didn't know. And I'm not saying that there are some situations and contexts in which that might be fine because, there could be relationships that are open or whatever.
Yeah.
But if that's not your relationship, if that's a context where it's like, no, that's pretty obvious. And my client's husband is acting like, no, that's ridiculous. You should have told me instead of, oh, crap. Oh, wow. I was thinking along this line of, I thought we were on this page and I thought it was okay for these reasons. And clearly it's not okay. And oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I made you feel uncomfortable. I hope I didn't make them feel uncomfortable. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
Right? Those are two different things. And it doesn't have to be I'm right and you're wrong, or you're wrong and I'm right. It could just be like, I'm comfortable with this and you're not, or vice versa, or we have different wants and needs. We need to actually hear each other. So if someone jumps to invalidate you and to not at first be like, how do you make sense and how can I understand your perspective? And you matter too, right? I matter and you matter is what this is all about. So there doesn't have to be, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah. So if someone is on the receiving end of the boundary, meaning someone is setting a boundary with you, what should you do? How should you approach that?
Oh, that's so funny because I was thinking about that too. Because last week, the people that I live with set the boundary that my dog can't go in their house anymore because my dog's a puppy and they have a toddler and they also have an older dog that gets stressed out by dogs. And so they were basically like, we can't have the dog in our house anymore. And we're sorry if this makes things difficult for you, which it does make things difficult for me because I have to go over there to use the kitchen because my place, which is a building on their property, doesn't have a kitchen. So I use theirs. And so it's tough to not be able to bring my dog over there with me. So yeah, I mean, that's hard for me. I'm bummed to hear that that's a boundary. And it was hard to hear and it's hard to sit with. And I definitely had a personal reaction because of how it's going to impact me. And then it had me thinking about, okay, well, given that boundary, how do things need to look? How do I need to figure out cooking and all that stuff? Or do I need to just exercise her more? Okay, when am I going to do that? And so I think when you receive a boundary, for me, I'm holding my experience of that and my reaction to it while also focusing on responding to the person. And how do I respond to the person? I mean, thank you for telling me. I didn't know you were feeling that way. And actually, in that situation, I said, I totally respect that because I do. I totally respect that. And could you put that kitchen cart together? Because they have this kitchen cart and they were going to put it together a few months ago and they haven't put it together yet. And I have like a slow cooker kind of thing that I got specifically because I was like, well, I'll have that kitchen cart so I can make some things in my apartment. So it's like I matter and they matter. So they matter. Of course, I'm going to be respectful of that boundary. And this would be super helpful for me because that impacts me cooking,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, could you do this? Because that would be super helpful. I mean, I'm going to respect their boundary regardless, but that would be really helpful. And they're like, yeah, we'll do that. And if they said, no, we're not going to do that, then it's on me to figure out, what do I need to do for myself? Do I need to figure out somewhere else to live? What do I need to do? So it's basically, you can have your own reaction to the boundary, but don't take it out on that person.
Yeah. It's not up to you to change that person's boundary. It's up to you to adapt to what the boundary is now and how are you going to respond within your life.
Yeah. And if the boundary was you can't come in the house, you can't use the kitchen, then it would be like, okay, well, that's crazy. But that's also their boundary. So for me, it would be like, all right, I need to move out. And that would then inform probably if I want to continue being friends with them. I think that's something different. But yeah, so if someone's setting a boundary with you, it's not up to you to try to get them to change that boundary. You can get clarification on the boundary. I wouldn't try to get clarification on the reasoning for the boundary.
But with that example, a clarification question I would ask is like, okay, well, if you guys are out of town and the dog is staying somewhere else, is it okay for my dog to be in your house?
Yes. Right. So it's getting clear on what is it that they need. Yeah, exactly. Which in my opinion shows respect for the boundary. Trying to think if there's anything else that people might be thinking in terms of boundaries. Should I ask ChatGPT?
Yeah, let's do it. I love that.
Number 1, how do I set a boundary without feeling guilty or hurting someone's feelings? Okay, you might hurt people's feelings and that's on them. So one of the boundaries, okay, because saying no is a boundary. It just makes me think about when I first started dating after a 9-year high school sweetheart relationship. And I was like, oh, I have to say no to all these people. And it's like, I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make them feel bad. And radical acceptance. Feel bad sometimes. People might be insecure and they might interpret your boundary or your no in a way that is inaccurate. Or maybe it's accurate, right? Like maybe they interpret it as I'm boring and that's why they don't want to hang out with me. And maybe that's true, but it's not your responsibility. And
Yeah.
also, you're not the first. They're getting that feedback from lots of places because that's something that's true about them and that's on them to figure out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I would say is you might not be able to figure out how to set a boundary without hurting someone's feelings, but you can go through those give skills for being respectful of others to try to reduce the likelihood of that and being kind. How do I set a boundary without feeling guilty? So, you might feel guilty.
Yeah. Well, we
Might feel
talked
guilty.
about a few weeks ago. I only know because I re-listened to this episode, the fear,
Episode 2.
obligation, and guilt. And
Yes.
that many times that's noise.
Exactly.
That assuming like you're a good person with good intentions and like what you're doing is to stay self-centered and is to stay in your seat and to, be respectful to your needs, which do come first for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then feeling guilty that, you're asking something of someone else or asking someone to not encroach on the things for yourself. Well, that's probably not true guilt. That's probably noise.
Exactly. Right. And so you'll have the feeling and experience of guilt, but it's noise. It's lying to you. And I'm trying to think of when you might set a boundary and feel guilty and have the guilt be a signal. I guess if you're truly doing something wrong by setting a boundary, then you should feel guilt.
Yeah. Or if you're lying.
Yeah. If you're lying. Yeah, that's so true. Yep.
I would say double standards are pretty.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Like
Yep.
you can do this, or I can do this, but you're not allowed to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep. And guilt, when it's a signal, is a signal, meaning it's a message that you're doing something wrong. So don't do that. So if you're setting a boundary and feeling guilty and you determine that you should feel guilty, then don't set the boundary.
Yeah.
Okay. What should I do if someone ignores or disrespects the boundaries I've set? Well, we talked about that. We covered it. So the too long didn't read is that if someone ignores or disrespect the boundaries, then they've come up to the fence and you're not engaging with them or some other behavior that you decided that you're going to do or not do. But your power is in your non-engagement. Your power is in your attention. And so you don't give your power away when you don't engage.
Yeah.
So if they ignore or disrespect the boundaries that you've set, then maybe that means that you can't be around them anymore or talk to them anymore, or you decrease that. How can I tell the difference between a healthy boundary and being too rigid or selfish? What would it look like to be too rigid or selfish in setting a boundary? Well, okay, yeah. In my last relationship, I think it was just this was not communicated like this, but over time, the pattern became basically that he doesn't contribute to the relationship emotionally.
Oh, yeah. That was
Which initially it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
But it ended up being that there were so many boundaries of, well, no, I can't support you in that way. I can't support you in that way. I can't support you in that way. Oh, I'm supporting you financially. So,
therefore, I don't have to do anything else.
right. So that would be a rigid and selfish boundary. And he still gets to have those boundaries. And then I decide what I want to do based on those boundaries. So even if, those of you listening, even if you are being too rigid or selfish in your boundary setting, the other person still gets to decide what they're going to do, right? They're still a willing participant in whether they stay or go or engage with you or not and what that looks like. So what's the difference between a healthy boundary and being too rigid or selfish? I think you could look at how much am I contributing mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and how much are they contributing? And am I setting this up to be something where I'm under functioning and they're over functioning? Is there an imbalance? So I think if you ask yourself, is there an imbalance? And there isn't, then it's probably not too rigid or selfish.
Yeah.
If you both matter, it's a healthy boundary.
Definitely.
What are effective ways to respond when someone sets a boundary with me that I don't agree with or find difficult to accept? If you don't agree with a boundary that someone gives you, that is difficult and it's still their boundary. And you
Mhm.
can't control other people, just like other people can't control you. We have free will, they have free will. So if they set a boundary with you that you don't agree with or find difficult to accept, then you learned something about them that might impact how close you want to be to them. Or
Yeah.
where does this person fit in your life? And you have free will, so you get to decide that as well.
Mhm.
Like other people get to be self-centered too. Other people
Yeah.
are centered in themselves. So when they're setting a boundary with you, it's either because they don't want to overextend themselves, or if they're being rigid or selfish and therefore you don't agree with it or find it difficult to accept, they get to do that. I know I said that, but I just need to say it in lots of ways. Okay. And then the last one is, how do I maintain a boundary when someone tries to test or push it repeatedly? You keep doing that behavior that you said to yourself, at least. Sometimes you say it to them too, but to yourself, that when they test my boundary, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to engage. You don't want to reinforce it. And again, that's giving you information about that person. So maybe
Mm.
you don't want to be as close to that person, or maybe you don't want to continue in the relationship with them. I can't think of any relationships that I've ever had that were worth keeping where someone repeatedly disrespected my boundaries.
Yeah. It's a filter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When you're starting to set boundaries and when you're starting to become self-centered, like that is a really big part of the work, is acknowledging that my experiences matter equally.
Mhm.
My needs matter equally. It's right for me to put these boundaries in place. And if I want this relationship to continue, and if the other person wants the relationship to continue, then we'll respect each other's boundaries.
Mhm. Yeah.
But if we don't, or if it can't be acknowledged and respected, then these people aren't a fit for me. And
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
There's other people that they can be a fit for, but
Yeah.
you don't have to, carry the burden of people that aren't compatible for you.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. And so much of this comes back to accepting reality, acknowledging reality often leads to grief.
Yeah.
We're actually facing something that we don't want to face. It's a truth that's really painful. And, the truth will set you free. I truly believe that. But first, you're going to be sad. And sometimes you're going to be angry. And it's okay to, feel your anger too. This is another thing that my clients will sometimes tell me. It's, well, this person is really motivated to respect my boundaries and they really want to respect my boundaries, but because of their own trauma or because of their own experiences or because of their own struggles with regulating their emotions, they impulsively react and they don't respect my boundaries, but then later they apologize. And I feel bad because they're trying and they're motivated and they do respect them, but they're just really struggling. And it's because they've been through so much. And what do I do in that case? And I think the implicit belief that isn't being spoken out loud is that when people are motivated and trying and have good intentions, then it's wrong to follow through on not engaging with them when
Mm.
when they can't respect your boundaries because, well, they want to and they've been through so much and here's the reasoning and all of this. Here's the thing. The boundaries are there to protect you. They're not against the other person. The
Yeah.
boundaries are for you. Boundaries are not a slight against someone else. They're just a
Mhm.
protection for you. So, what I always advise my clients is I tell them you can communicate this to them if you want, but it's really mostly just for you to know. Yeah, I super appreciate that you want to respect my boundaries and that it's so important to you and you feel so bad when you don't respect them. And since those boundaries are there to protect me, I have to keep protecting myself. So when you're not able to respect them, then I can't engage with you.
Yeah.
And again, that's just radical acceptance. That's just a hard truth. And I think the reason that people feel uncomfortable with that is because of the urge to be responsible for other people's emotions and to regulate other people's emotions.
Yeah.
And that's also part of radical acceptance is it's not my responsibility, it's their responsibility. And so, yeah, they're going to struggle.
Yeah. And honestly, if it's someone that is motivated and is really committed to, okay, I see that you have this boundary and I do want to support it, that's probably going to awaken some enlightenment in themselves of, oh, wow, I'm struggling through something that I need to work through that's
Right.
preventing me from working, like supporting this boundary. So that's my cue as someone who loves this person and who wants this relationship to continue, to go work on myself and to
Right.
go address the deeper root that's preventing me from showing up appropriately to this relationship.
Yeah. And maybe I go and get help, but then sometimes I'm still not able to respect that boundary because I'm reacting. I actually want them to not engage with me because I do care about them,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Instead of the expectation, again, implicit expectation, meaning it's not spoken out loud, it's not explicit, being, oh, well, because I technically respect your boundaries because I want to, but it's just that in actuality, I don't respect them because I can't, because I'm struggling. Then you shouldn't protect yourself and you should actually leave your seat, leave your center to come take care of me. So not only are you not maintaining the boundaries that protect you, but now you're overextending yourself for me. And
Yeah.
that might be a dynamic that's happening with a really well-meaning person. And unfortunately, again, the reality is you can't do that.
Yeah.
People struggling and being uncomfortable, it's just not a reason to stop protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't fix that for them anyway. So the only thing that you can person that you can protect is yourself, and they're going to be struggling regardless. So they need help.
Yeah.
And if you leave yourself, you're just going to go enable them and create a codependent dynamic. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we covered it all.
I think we did. That
No,
was pretty
Katie has the
thorough.
hiccups. So, all of you listening, if there are situations or examples in your own life that you're thinking of, email us, find us on Instagram, selfcenteredthepod@gmail.com and
Yes.
selfcentered.pod on Instagram. Yeah, let us know your specific examples, give us context, and we can talk about it in a future episode and give you our thoughts on it. This stuff can get complicated, and I'm sure there are things that, we haven't. I mean, I think we covered a lot, but life is life. So,
Yeah. And it's a lot of times when you're in the situation and you're mostly emotionally invested in the situation and your list of experiences for setting boundaries maybe is small, it can feel really overwhelming and it can feel damn near impossible to say, like, oh, I have to tell them what? I'm supposed to say what? Like, this is what I envision the ideal is, but I'm way back over here down the line in terms of where I've set my boundaries. How do I get from point A to point B? Sometimes, having someone else say, oh, well, this is how that would look. It removes the heavy weight of it. Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay, well, that's actually really clear.
I think of it like rock climbing, where you might be an expert rock climber, but you still need someone who's belaying you. And the person on the ground has a different perspective than you who are up on the mountain, and they might be able to see a hold that you can't see. I think about that all the time in terms of therapy and coaching because, yeah, I'm a good therapist, I'm a good coach, but I also need to be a client.
Yeah.
I have perspective for other people, but I don't have certain perspective for me because I am me.
Yeah.
I
So
need someone
true.
who's outside of me. We already mentioned that episode 2, we talked about fear, obligation, and guilt, which can definitely come into the boundary conversation and can get in the way of setting boundaries. In episode 3, we also talk about jade, which is the urge to justify, argue, defend, and explain ourselves, which is also relevant to boundaries. So definitely go listen to those episodes if you haven't yet. And I was thinking we might end with one of my favorite poems that really helped me
Ooh, yeah.
when I needed to set boundaries, when I was feeling pretty, just really struggling to put myself first and be self centered. We go with that. Anything
Yeah.
else
Let's do it.
before I
No,
get
you crushed it. This is great.
Okay, great. So this is called The Journey by Mary Oliver. All right. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice. though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.
Wow. That's good.
I know. I love that poem.
So you said that you found that when you were working on setting boundaries.
Yeah, I knew in my heart that we were going to have to go no contact because I knew that this person wasn't capable of not abusing me. And I don't say that in a judgmental way. Actually, I feel really bad for them for everything that they've been through. They have their own trauma. But again, I have to protect myself. So I knew it was going to lead there, but I also wanted to give opportunities because, you know, this isn't what I wanted. And I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt that maybe it could improve and we could have a healthy relationship. So I started with my boundaries being pretty small and then increasing them over time. And they increased over time because they didn't respect each boundary. So I had to be like, okay, well, now in response to the reaction that you're having that is harmful, I need to set a boundary around that. But in order to even start the boundary setting process, I knew that I had to be okay with the probable outcome of the final boundary actually being an ultimatum of no contact. So that poem, when I found it, it was just really significant to me, especially how it's talking about hearing the voices crying and the tug at the ankles, mend my life. There's a lot of therapists who were once parentified in their family. So, you know, like kids who had to emotionally support people in their family and be the adult when they were still kids. And that's definitely me. So I just felt bad for these specific people in my family. And I still feel bad for them. And it felt like I was abandoning them because it felt like, you know, I was taking care of them for so long and, you know, they were depending on me for so long. I didn't put myself in that position. I was kind of like obligated into that position and I was leaving them now with this boundary of no contact. But I think I had to let go of that. And I remember that I wasn't connected to myself. I wasn't self-centered, but I knew that I couldn't become self-centered until I walked away. So in the poem where it's like, well, things got, or at least for me, the meaning is like things got quiet and then you hear your own voice. I remember during that time before I set boundaries, like everything was just, it was just like constant chaos. It was just constant issues that they had with me, so much that I couldn't even keep track of everything, like all the issues. It was just constant things happening and I couldn't process it all. It was just so convoluted and my brain just couldn't compute it all. And then I remember this one moment. It's a core memory for me after I'd set boundaries and we went no contact. And then it was terrifying. But then a few months went by and I was like, wow, it's just like, this is what safety is. Like, this is what security is. This is what having this boundary and not being constantly harmed leads to. And I'm still here.
Yeah.
Wow, this was like an intense one.
Yeah, it was. Don't worry, next week will be lighter.
Yeah. I told Katie, I was like, we got to do something chill after this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, bye, everyone. We love you all, and we hope that you stay self-centered, set boundaries, protect yourself and your joy.
You got this.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Follow us on Instagram at selfcentered.pod or connect with us at selfcenteredthepod@gmail.com.
Stay self-centered and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Peace.